If you can't effectively defend yourself against one person, what makes you think you're going to be able to effectively defend yourself against multiple people? If you cannot defend yourself against one trained fighter who trains with professional fighters on a regular basis, what makes you think you're going to be able to defend yourself against one fighter with a knife or one attacker trying to mug you at gunpoint? If you don't know how to take hits to the face without freaking out, if you don't practice fighting on a regular basis, how do you expect to be able to defend yourself under the stress of a real self-defense situation in real life? Do you really think practicing and drilling techniques over and over again for years without actually sparring with somebody and practicing and trying to apply those techniques against somebody else who's spontaneously trying to hurt you, do you think that you're actually going to be able to pull off those techniques if you're ever needing to use them in real life? If four people come up behind you and jump you and try to steal your money, do you think that you're going to be more likely to survive that situation if you do hard sparring on a regular basis, or if you do not do hard sparring on a regular basis? MMA fighters or just martial artists who spar on a regular basis, they train technique on a regular basis too. Traditional martial artists usually just train techniques. They talk about theoretically what might happen in a real situation, but they don't really spar on a regular basis, so they don't get that exposure to the stress that occurs during a real threatening, dangerous situation on the street or at a bar. Okay? Probably the most important thing that you can train for is how to apply techniques and how to fight, how to defend yourself under the stress of a spontaneous threat. That is why sparring on a regular basis is so important. Sparring against one person is extremely important to be able to spar against four people. If you want to defend yourself against a knife, don't you think it makes sense to be able to defend yourself against an unarmed opponent first? If you just train knife disarms and how to grapple someone with a knife through technique training for years, do you think you're going to be as efficient as somebody who spars on a regular basis and trains against a threatening opponent without a knife under hard sparring circumstances every single day for years? Who do you think is going to be better? It's more about the exposure to the stress rather than the technique. Traditional martial artists spend way too much time on the technique drilling and thinking about what's going to happen. And they don't spend enough time actually practicing under pressure. Pressure testing is not the same as actually sparring against somebody who's trying to take your head off with punches, okay? Light sparring, moderate sparring, and hard sparring all play a very important role in self-defense. People who just practice kata and forms or practice applying techniques on their classmates over and over again for years, they're not going to be able to survive in the street. Trying to defend against crotch shots and this and that, it's not going to make a difference if you never actually practice that in real sparring. You can stand in the middle of a room and have four people come at you and try to grapple you and try to, just pretend to attack you all you want. It's not going to make a lick of difference when you're actually out there and four people actually try to jump you out of nowhere, and they grab you and they're actually trying to hurt you and they punch you a couple times in the head. If you've never been kneed in the head before, you're not going to be able to effectively defend yourself if someone does it in the real life. the more you expose yourself to the stress and the challenge of real fighting, the more prepared you will be when it actually happens in a real fight. The closest thing you can come to practicing self-defense realistically is sparring. Sparring against one person, and then sparring against two people, and sparring against three people. Real moderate and hard sparring on a frequent basis, at least once a week, is absolutely essential to defending yourself in a real life situation. Self-defense martial arts and traditional martial arts that do not include light, moderate, and hard sparring on a regular basis are useless for self-defense. However, from my experience doing traditional martial arts for years, there's a lot of benefits to these things, particularly the philosophy, the history, the theoretical ideas, and also obviously the katas, the forms, the qigong, the meditation, the tai chi, okay? But self-defense without practicing fighting is useless. It makes no sense. If you feel like you can defend yourself without hurting someone, you're full of crap. Unless, of course, you do something like jiu-jitsu, but even then, it doesn't work, okay? The greatest defense is a great offense, okay? Training to defend, okay, if you're training to poke somebody's eye out, right? Like traditional martial arts try to say, oh, there's rules in MMA. Well, listen, somebody trying to kick me in the nuts is the same thing as somebody trying to kick me on the inner thigh. And when we practice, when we spar, people all the time try to front kick me in the hip or try to roundhouse me in the inner thigh. The defense to a crotch shot is the same thing as a defense to a kick to the hip or a kick to the inner thigh. So I mean, if you try to kick me in the nuts, I'm going to defend that kick the same way I would when somebody tries to kick me around that area in sparring, okay? Just because we don't train for crotch shots doesn't mean that we won't be able to defend against them or do them in real life. In fact, it makes us better at crotch shotting in real life. We can crotch shot you too. We're just better at it. Somebody who's really good at throwing jabs and punches to the face during sparring is going to be really good at poking you in the eyes in a real fight. If you think, oh, I train eye pokes and eye gouges, so, I'm better than you MMA fighters. Well, we probably have faster hands than you because we train hand speed on a regular basis because we constantly punch people in the face on a regular basis. So if I punch my sparring partner in the eye every single day, I'm probably going to be able to poke you in the eye a lot better than your non-sparring ass. If you don't spar on a regular basis, if you don't train hand speed, you're not going to be able to poke somebody in the eye who trains head movement and, blocking a real dangerous opponent. Okay, people who train to fight on a regular basis are going to be able to fight better than people who just train technique all the time. That is why traditional martial artists are ridiculed, okay? Now, if you do traditional martial arts and you spar on a regular basis, then this video is not for you, okay? Traditional martial artists, they want to believe that, oh, I can defend myself without actually sparring. You're full of crap, okay? Miyamoto Musashi, or else it was Sun Tzu, said, the best way to learn how to fight multiple people is to learn how to fight one person effectively. Or if one wants to fight hundreds of people, one must become very effective at fighting one person, okay? He who can destroy one person is going to be better at destroying hundreds of people. Just look up that quote, okay? Miyamoto Musashi and Sun Tzu said it best, and Miyamoto Musashi has hundreds of documented kills, confirmed kills. So, I mean, guy growing up in federal Japan having to defend himself against sword slashes and shit like that, probably knows what he's talking about, okay? Much more than people who don't spar and don't ever, get exposed to real stress of fighting.